All right, my friends, thank you for joining in this video. If you're watching this video, you are here to obtain some knowledge on chemical quantities. Now, of course, it's in the name. We're going to be looking at chemicals and how we can get quantities of them. And as it's been previously discussed, things that we've seen so far this year is that measuring matter tends to involve some sort of number, and we call that a quantitative or a quantity. So chemistry is a quantitative science, meaning that we are trying to find a number that can help us to support some sort of idea that we are trying to prove. And so far this year, we've used these three basic ways to quantify matter. We've used count, which is strictly a number of things, items that we have. In this case, an apple, we have 1 dozen, which we know to equal 12 apples. So that's pretty easy. You can obviously count the number of things, and even more so, we can take that number and put it into a more digestible unit, such as a dozen. We can also get the mass, how much matter it contains, the weight, or again, the mass of each of those items. We can use a scale to determine that amount. And then additionally, volume. Volume is defined as the amount of space that something takes up. So if we can also measure how much space something takes up, we can also get its volume. So we're going to be looking at all three of these variables in this unit and how we can use that as it pertains more commonly to chemistry with these very small things that we're going to be discussing. But before we can get into that, we need to understand the basics of perhaps converting between these different units. So in the case where we need to, if we're given a certain amount of apples, in this case, 1 apple, and we want to figure out what the mass is of that individual apple, well, we are going to need to use some of the information given to us in order to solve for that. Now, we're going to be using these things called conversion factors, and that's going to help us to convert between quantities of, in this case, it's apples, but it could be anything. Basically, conversion factors, are ratios. They're written as expressed as ratios, such as 1 dozen over 12 apples, which just means if you have 1 dozen apples, you have 12 apples, or 1 dozen apples has a mass of 2 kilograms, so on and so forth. We're going to use these conversion factors in order to calculate anything, and it doesn't always pertain to apples, but we're just starting with the basics, and then we'll get into the chemistry stuff here shortly. So in the example, which is also in your notes, use the conversion factors provided to calculate the mass of 1 apple. And of course, because this is a math unit, we're going to try to show our work as much as we can. So if we know that we have 1 apple, and we know that every 1 apple is equal to 1 dozen apples is 12 apples, you'll notice that our 1 apple here is getting divided by 12 apples because we want to cancel out those units. So 1 dozen over 12, and then we're going to multiply that by the ratio of 2 kilograms per 1 dozen. Our final value that we're looking for, we want that to be in kilograms. The question's asking, find the mass of 1 apple. So of course, it makes sense that our only unit that isn't crossed out is kilograms, our mass. So you see these red dashes through here. These are meant to represent us canceling out units. Anytime you divide by the same unit, that cancels it out. So 1 apple times 1 dozen times 2 is 2. And then, of course, because it's the bottom of our fraction, we're going to divide 2 by 12, and that's going to give us our value of 0.17 kilograms. So using these conversion factors provided to us, we would be able to tell somebody that 1 apple has a mass of 0.17 kilograms. And all of this was made possible by conversion factors. You will never need to memorize a conversion factor. These are always given to you, and you just need to know how to use them, just like a lot of the things that we do in chemistry. So with these ideas in mind, with these conversion factors, I'm going to ask that you try one on your own. We have 1 dozen apples, and they have a mass of 2 kilograms, and that each apple has 8 seeds. How many seeds are in 14 kilograms of apples? I'm interested to see you guys try this out using some of the conversion factors on this previous slide. You should be able to get that conversion and determine how many seeds are in 14 kilograms of apples. So we'll see how we do the next time I see you guys. But for now, I want you to try that, and then we'll visit that again later. Now, all of these conversions are made possible by what is called dimensional analysis. And dimensional analysis is a way for us to be able to convert from one unit to the other. Basically, in order for us to convert, I've already mentioned this before, but we're going to need to use conversion factors. Conversion factors are just the ratios that we use to convert one thing to another. In this case, in some cases, like 12 inches, we know is equal to 1 foot. 1 dozen is equal to 12 things. So these are conversion factors, and we express these as ratios in order to convert units. And we do this, this is made possible by multiplying and or dividing, and this is how we're able to get our one unit, our target unit alone, and that's what allows for us to get our final answers. So conversion factors are helpful for us to perform calculations, and the general way that we're going to go ahead and use these conversion factors is we're always going to start with a given unit, and we're always going to want a desired unit. You'll notice in this slide right here, I've got our given unit and whatever that is, and we always want to divide that by that same unit with that conversion factor in mind. We can turn conversion factors into ratios or fractions. If we have a conversion factor that 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes, we can express that in two different ways. We can say 1 hour, in every 1 hour, there are 60 minutes, 1 over 60, or in every 60 minutes, that equals 1 hour. Both of these things are expressing the same information. However, depending on the situation of what we're trying to convert, we might need to flip-flop those conversion factors. And I think that this will start to make a little bit more sense once we've seen some more of this stuff in action. So there are 5 steps for us to perform or use dimensional analysis. And my idea here is I'm going to walk you guys through one full example of how we can use these conversion factors and how we're going to be able to solve for a situation such as this one where we have 45.3 feet and we want to know how many inches that is. So we're just going to follow this step by step. And this is not to say you need to memorize these steps, because really we're going to practice this so much that you will have this process down pat, and you'll probably figure out your own way to solve these. Of course, we always want to show our work, but I'm just starting with the basics, and we'll figure out how we can make it personal to us as we get a little bit more comfortable with it. So first, we're going to start with what you know, or known as our given, and then we're going to proceed to the unknown, or what was desired. So we're first going to draw our dimensional analysis chart, or start with our given, of course, 45.3 feet, and we want to convert that to inches. So I'm going to throw that into a dimensional analysis chart. Kind of looks like a T for now. Now we want to insert our unit relationships, or the conversion factor. We know that in every 1 foot, there are 12 inches. And because I see that we have feet as our given, we're going to want to make sure that feet ends up in the denominator of this. So we know that 12 inches are in every 1 foot. And now you'll see that we have feet as our given. We have feet in the denominator. Imagine this as being one large fraction. When you divide by the same unit, what that does is that cancels out our units. Step number 4 is to cancel out your units. Now that we've got all of our units canceled out, and that leaves us just with inches, which matches what the question is asking for, we're going to take feet, 45.3. We're going to multiply that by 12, and then finally we're going to divide that by 1 to get our final answer, which is 543.6 inches. Now this one was pretty easy because all we're doing is we're converting from feet to inches, which is a one-step equation. But at the end of this, we notice that our units are canceled. We have our desired units still uncanceled, and this is a good indication that we are ready to solve. 45.3 times 12 divided by 1 is 543.6 inches. So many of these examples and many of the things that we are doing in this video are going to become practice that you have in your packets or in the practice that I have linked for you on the weekly preview. So you have 5 practice problems on page 2 of the packet, or again, I will have that practice linked for you in the weekly preview. All I ask is that you have these done by Thursday so I can check in with you, see if there's anything that we need to tighten up, and hopefully we're ready to keep rocking with some of these conversions. If you guys have questions, feel free to stop in or email me or whatever you think is the best way to get yourself on track. I'm here to help, but let me know what I can do for you. That's it for this video. See you guys soon.